Hello, USA Team Handball fans. John Ryan here with a very special edition of USA Handball Talk. I know some of you would like to discuss the men's provisional roster for the World Championships, developments in college handball, beach handball tournaments upcoming, etc. But I know what the most people want and that they are demanding is a breakdown of the intrigue that is the USA Team Handball Board of Directors and staffing actions for the past several months. So without further ado, here we go. Well, as Julie Andrews would say, let's start from the very beginning. This is how the Board of Directors and the USA Team Handball staff looked in January of 2023. We had a full complement of 9 board members and 4 members on staff. However, this was soon to change. On the 1st of February, then CEO Ryan Johnson announced that he would be resigning from his position at the end of the month. The trigger for this resignation was a decision by the IHF to no longer fund past the original 3-year commitment for the CEO's salary. Faced with a cut in salary, Ryan Johnson chose to resign. At the same time, the board of directors selected Martin Brannick as the interim CEO following Johnson's resignation. Short transparency alert, I have been told that I was a candidate for the interim CEO position. So this is how the staff looked on the 28th of February. Martin Brannick moved up from the membership director to the interim CEO position, and Ryan Johnson left the organization. On the 3rd of April, USA Team Handball announced a process for CEO selection. Around this same time period, the high performance manager, Krista Austin, also departed from the organization, reportedly due to budget cuts. This left 2 members on staff. On the 20th of July, USA Team Handball announced that Martin Brannick had been selected as the new CEO, essentially taking the interim off of his current title. Michael King was reportedly the runner-up in the selection process, and as another transparency alert, I was never actually interviewed for the permanent CEO position. Who says that this board can't agree on anything? So this is how the board of directors and staff looked then on the 20th of July. Shortly after Martin Brannick assumed the CEO position, Michael King established a new organization, the U.S. Handball Union. The union was focused on organizing domestic competition, and it was emphasized that it was not to be a competing organization for all of USA Team Handball's functions. The U.S. Handball Union was an all-volunteer organization with Michael King as the executive director and J.D. Orr also helping primarily with collegiate handball functions. The key difference between the Handball Union and USA Team Handball were significantly reduced fees for membership. At $35, it was at half of the current USA Team Handball cost. The union was able to sign up membership with several U.S. clubs as USA Team Handball was slow to react to the price difference. At the same time, the union started to seek partnership cooperation with U.S. Team Handball, and with the desire to essentially become the lead organizer for domestic competition in the United States. The union and USA Team Handball, however, could not agree to any form of partnership. In November, USA Team Handball lowered their membership dues to match the union, but as most clubs had already joined the union, few wanted to pay twice. As a result, most competitions were either held by the union or were independent, such as the Northeast Team Handball League. The 2023-24 USA domestic handball season wrapped up with 3 national championships. The union held a collegiate national championship, while USA Team Handball declined to have a separate collegiate championship. Both organizations, however, had national championships. The USA Team Handball had their championship in Spokane, Washington, and the Union had theirs in Las Vegas. Both events were attended by roughly the same amount of teams. Now let's move back to personnel moves. On the 15th of March, Sandra De La Riva resigned from her position as an independent director. My understanding is this was simply done for personal reasons. This is then how the board looked on the 15th of March. The board of directors has decreased from 9 to 8 members. Next several slides will focus on the Athletes Advisory Council meeting on 24 May 2024. Arguably, this was the most consequential meeting in this entire sequence. First, a little background on the AAC. The council is an independent body and it's made up of athletes and it serves as the voice of the athletes. However, it is connected to the board in that 3 AAC members also sit on the board of directors. To the best of my knowledge, this was the membership of the AAC for the meeting. Michael King and Julia Taylor were the co-chairs of the AAC. There was a vacant spot, I think related to the men's national team. And then the 3 board members who are also on the AAC are Mark Ortega, Jennifer Fiffian, and ABA Udo Udomo. Rounding out is Ty Reed, who is a representative for the men's national team, and Drew Donlin and Cedar Bellows with the beach national team. The meeting was focused on ABA Udo Udomo, aka the Handball Ninja, and his role in the selection of the beach handball women's national team coach. And in turn, whether his actions involved with that selection merited his removal from the AAC and in turn the board of directors. Udo Udomo came into the meeting unaware that his removal was going to be discussed in the meeting. Udo Udomo was part of a 4-member selection committee to select the women's national team coach for beach handball. Also on the committee were Mark Ortega and Marianne Acker, who were board members, and the CEO, Martin Brannick. In the process of selecting the coach, it is alleged that Udo Udomo recommended that Lauro Cabos be selected and misrepresented his personal recommendation as a committee recommendation. Following a review of the information, a motion to remove Udo Udomo from the AAC and the board was approved. A vote was then conducted. Here are the results of that vote. There were 5 votes in favor of his removal, with Taylor, Bellows, Fithian, Ortega, and Reed being part of that group. The only vote against removal was from Drew Donlin. Mike King removed himself from it to avoid a conflict of interest, and then ABA did not vote on it. Interestingly, I'm not sure what the reason was that caused King to avoid a conflict of interest. I don't think there was any reason related to ABA's actions that would preclude him from having voted. Unless, of course, this is merely the first step in some follow-on actions. A quick note, later in September, the Judicial Committee ruled on the 24 May 2024 meeting actions. They determined that Udo Udomo's removal was improper since he did not get a proper notice that his removal was to be discussed, and the proper process would have been to have a vote by the beach athletes that elected him. Udo Udomo was eventually reinstated on 7 September. Here is the composition of the board of directors following the AAC meeting. There are now only 7 board directors with 2 vacancies. 11 days after the AAC meeting, board member Patrick Jalabert contacts Michael Wall and informs him that he plans to call a special meeting to seek his removal as the board president. Presumably, the new 4-3 majority on the board makes such an effort now viable. The next day, Michael Wall chooses to resign rather than fight the new majority. Fellow board member Tracy DeForge also resigns, and Patrick Jalabert becomes the new interim board president. Here are the 2 board members that resigned. And here's a depiction of Patrick Jalabert assuming the interim board of directors president role. There are now 5 board members and 4 vacancies on the board of directors. On the 26th of June, Lawrence X. Taylor, no relation to the famous football player, fills Sandra de la Riva's empty board of directors position. There are now 6 members in the board of directors and 3 vacancies. On 5 July, USA Team Handball posts a notice on its website for a special election for a beach athlete director. No explanation is provided as to why an election is needed. In the June to August timeframe, the board discussed a potential partnership between the USA Team Handball and the U.S. Handball Union. The meeting minutes on 6 August strike a particularly acrimonious tone. On the 27th of August, the board meets again, and apparently at an impasse, a vote is held on whether to remove Martin Brannick from the CEO position and to replace him with Mike King. The results of the vote were in favor, Patrick Jalabert, Mark Ortega, and Jennifer Fithian; against, Camille Nichols and Lawrence Taylor; and then with an abstention, Marianne Acker. I'll say that was an interesting choice. Just 9 days later, the Judicial Committee comes out with its ruling that reinstates Udo Adomo to the board. It's hard not to speculate that if the board had waited to make a decision on CEO, if the vote would have been different if Udo Adomo was seated on the board. Here's a depiction of the board of directors on 5 September. The board now consists of 7 board members with 2 vacancies. On 9 September, Michael King assumes his role as CEO, and Martin Brannick is now just a member of the USA Team Handball staff. There is no announcement that this change has been made. A short note on the U.S. Handball Union. I think it has been dissolved, as the website is dark, and I don't think there have been any competitions organized. But there's conflicting language in the minutes, so I think it's been dissolved, but I'm not entirely sure. But that's how I will depict it in the following charts. On 15 September, Udo Adomo files a grievance asking the Judicial Committee to assess whether all board votes taken while he was improperly removed should be reviewed. Those decisions include the appointment of Patrick Jalabert as the new board president on 15 June, and the CEO removal and replacement vote taken on 27 August. On 20 September, Camille Nichols, an independent director on the board of directors, announced her resignation. The board of directors now consists of 6 board members with 3 vacancies. On 7 October, Martin Brannick performed his last official duties as a member of the USA Team Handball staff. While still currently technically employed, he is essentially on paternity leave. On 8 October, just 4 months after being appointed to the board of directors, independent director Lawrence Taylor resigns from the board. The board now consists of 5 directors and 4 vacancies. All 4 vacancies are independent directors to the board of directors. On 10 October, the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee met with USA Team Handball to discuss their concern regarding USA Team Handball's noncompliance with the Ted Stevens Sports Act and various NGB compliance standards. On 13 October, David Buckman, the chair of the Nominating Governance Committee, resigns. The NGC is responsible for recruiting and vetting board members, of which several now need to be replaced. Buckman was also a member of the USA Team Handball board from 2018 to 2022. On 22 October, the Olympic Committee sent a 5-page follow-up letter to their 10 October meeting with USA Team Handball. The letter details the Olympic Committee's concerns and the required reforms that USA Team Handball needs to make. I periodically check the USA Team Handball webpage to see if any board meeting minutes have been posted. On 23 October, I was pleased to find that minutes from 8 meetings from May to September this year were posted. And I immediately downloaded those minutes. Later in the day, as I was getting ready to post a message to the Team Handball community that they could now review the minutes, I saw that the meeting minutes were no longer up. On 24 October, USA Team Handball finally announces that it has a new CEO in charge. This is 2 months after the decision had been made and a month and a half after he'd actually started the job. The announcement included no mention of Martin Brannick's removal and how he had been appointed the CEO. After waiting a few days to see if the minutes would reappear on the USA Team Handball website, I decided to post them on the Team Handball News website. The next day, Mike King contacted me to let me know that those meeting minutes had been published with illegal behavior. I took down 4 of the 8-minute meeting minutes that were requested. Subsequently, USA Team Handball has posted 3 of the minutes from the 8 meetings. 5 of the 8-minute meeting minutes are still not posted on the USA Team Handball website. On 31 October, the USA Team Handball Judicial Committee responded to Udo Odomo's grievance. They did so in 2 findings. The first was a review of the earlier reinstatement, and the second was a decision on whether the board votes taken in his absence would need to be reviewed. First, the finding on whether the AAC did indeed improperly remove Udo Odomo. They reviewed the earlier grievance response, and this time the vote was 3-2. The 3 members of the panel that had voted for it the first time all agreed that he indeed was improperly removed, while 2 new members of the panel, Carson Chun and Elizabeth Hartnett, felt that he had not been improperly removed, that the removal was appropriate. The second finding in the grievance found that the board motions taken while Udo Odomo was absent were still proper and should stand. The decision for that vote was made on a 3-2 basis, this time with Chun, Hartnett, and Rubin in favor of letting the decision stand, and Narati and Silver saying that they should be reviewed. On 1 November, the Forum Club Handball posted a notice saying that they had decided to put funding support to USA Team Handball on hold. The Forum Club Handball has provided financial support for athletes to train with top clubs in Europe. To the best of my knowledge, this is the first major handball organization to take a stand or to even acknowledge the sequence of events over the past few months. Well, I'd like to say that, as you can see, everything has now been resolved. That's clearly not the case. There's still multiple unknowns out there. In particular, we have yet to hear anything from the IHF, at least publicly. Generally, when we get a new CEO every 2 years, we get a welcoming message posted on the IHF website. There's been nothing like that. Also, the board is down to 5 members. In 1 January, we'll be down to 1 member, as only Patrick Jalabert has a term that won't expire on 31 December. This means that the Nominating and Governments Committee will have to nominate 4 new independent board members, and that they will have to vet the election and the for the general membership and the athlete members. On top of this, I think the NGC will also need to be reconstituted. So we have to first figure out who's going to be on the NGC so that they can then figure out who's going to be on the board. And I am guessing that there will be some interesting infighting and discussion about who gets placed on both of those boards. Finally, I think looming over everything is a question of whether there'll be further Olympic Committee action. I've been around a while, and those of you who've been around a while as well probably have a feeling that this feels a lot like what happened in the 2005-2006 timeframe when USA Team Handball was decertified. It would not surprise me if we are indeed headed toward that path. Well, anyway, thanks for listening. You can find this presentation on YouTube. There's also an MP3 file, and I will be posting it at the Team Handball News website.